Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really simple story that, honestly, has a huge lesson about how to deal with all that noise in our heads. It's called The Glass of Water, and it holds a pretty surprising key to finding a little bit of inner peace.
So let's just start with a question that I bet is going to feel familiar. Does your mind ever feel like a storm? You know what I mean, right? Just thoughts swirling around, one after another, making it totally impossible to find even one quiet moment.
Well, our story is about a young man who was completely stuck in that storm. His mind was just this place of constant chaos, and it left him feeling totally exhausted and, frankly, pretty desperate for a way out.
So let's meet Marco. He's 24 years old, and his mind is just always on. All day, every day, his head is a nonstop flood of ideas, worries, and memories. It just leaves him feeling completely drained.
You see, his mind was caught in this loop, this relentless cycle. He was either getting dragged back into sadness about stuff that already happened, or he was being shoved forward into anxiety about things that hadn't even happened yet. The present? It just wasn't a place he ever got to live.
And this mental storm, it had a real cost. It wasn't just in his head, it was seeping into every single part of his life. He felt uneasy all the time, he was always tired, he couldn't find a moment of calm, he wasn't sleeping well, and, he'd even forgotten how to smile.
Feeling pretty hopeless and just completely worn down, Marco finally hit a point where he realized, I can't fix this by myself. It was time to actually go look for help, to find someone who could maybe show him a different way to be.
He started hearing these stories about a wise man living way out in the hills, someone who had apparently helped a lot of other people find some mental peace. So, holding on to this tiny little sliver of hope, Marco set off on a really long journey to find him.
When he finally got there and stood in front of this wise man, Marco just laid it all out there, plain and simple. He said, "Grandfather, my mind is very restless. I cannot stop thinking. I want peace in my heart. Can you help me?"
But here's the thing. The wise man's response wasn't some long lecture or a piece of advice. Instead, he gave Marco a very unusual hands-on challenge.
He took a glass, filled it with water right up to the very brim, so full you could barely move it, and gave Marco this one really critical instruction. The task itself sounded simple, right? But the stakes were high. The slightest wobble and that water was going to spill.
So Marco accepted, and in that moment, his entire world shrank down to one single, delicate task, keeping that water perfectly still. He started walking, slowly, carefully, right through the middle of a busy, noisy village. There were people shouting, dogs barking, but he was aware of none of it. His attention was completely and totally locked on that glass in his hands.
After making his way through the whole village and back again, he returned to the wise man, so proud and successful. The glass was just as full as when he started. He had done it perfectly.
Okay, now this is where it all clicks. This is where this simple little task unlocks a really profound truth. Because as Marco was just about to find out, the test was never really about the water.
Instead of congratulating him, the wise man just looks at him and asks these really surprising questions. See, he wasn't interested in whether Marco spilled the water, he was interested in what Marco experienced while he was doing it.
And Marco's honest answer? It revealed everything. By focusing completely, 100% on that glass of water, his mind had absolutely no room for anything else. No distractions, no worries from the past, no fears about the future. For the first time in what felt like forever, his mind was quiet.
And that just perfectly illustrates the core lesson, doesn't it? The wise man explained that when your mind is fully here, in the present moment, there's no space for fear of the future or sadness about the past. The storm just disappears.
Marco's whole journey to that village, it wasn't about finding something there. See, all this time, he'd been searching for peace like it was some physical place he could get to, or something another person could just give him.
But the truth is, real peace was inside him the entire time. It was a state he could get to whenever he wanted, just by bringing his full attention to the now. He didn't need to empty his mind, he just needed to fill it with the present.
Well, Marco walked home a changed man. He wasn't restless anymore because he finally understood the secret. So the big question is, how do we take this incredibly powerful lesson and apply it to our own lives?
The story really invites us to ask ourselves that exact question. What is your glass of water? What's the one thing in your life you can focus on so completely that all that mental chatter just fades into the background? Maybe it's the feeling of your feet on the ground when you walk, or the detailed process of chopping vegetables for dinner. It could be really listening to a piece of music, or just focusing on the simple rhythm of your own breath. It can be any task, any activity at all that anchors you right here in the present.
And that really leaves us with this final practical thought. Peace isn't about stopping your thoughts. It's about giving them somewhere to rest. So what are you going to choose to focus on right here and now to find that quiet that's already waiting for you inside?